Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Teas. With our inspirational teas, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Teas. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tea and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Teas at dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Hi guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James. And on my podcast, my guests and I discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. So check out our podcast. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, or even on Audible. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel at Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until then, see you soon. Welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. I was going to say the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but that is our other podcast. So welcome to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, where our belief is that the relationship between a father and daughter is one of the most important relationships in a woman's life. So our mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by spreading the voices of girl dads to the world and give love and support to all of our dads and their daughters. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your social media outlets. And make sure that you guys are following us on your podcast listening services. Also, I'm going to tell you guys how you can win $100 from the podcast. You can win $100 from the podcast, but you have to stay until the end of the episode to get that information. And also, once again, make sure you guys are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We actually share a YouTube channel with our partner podcast, the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. So when you go to YouTube, you look up the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast and that channel, and you will find not only the Deal to Heal podcast, but you will find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. So make sure that you guys are following us definitely on our YouTube page. So today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest. Micah, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I am good. I am good. First of all, let me say thank you for being here.
Thank you
You
for
could have
having
been
me.
doing anything else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So, Micah, do me a favor, introduce yourself to my listeners and tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Micah Yacht. I'm an artist, a writer, musician, speaker, also carpenter. I recently wrote a film this past year, turned it into a graphic novel, and I'm working on turning it into an actual film or an animation. I also created a website that I'm going to continue building. It's a social media website that focuses on education and connection. But that's not up and running yet. Still marketing it.
Okay. Well, thanks for having you. I'm glad to have you. You mentioned you are a carpenter. I used to be a carpenter.
Very
I
cool.
am now a union bricklayer for 17 years, going on 17 years now. So definitely like the hands-on hands-on
Oh yeah.
approach when it comes to the work that we do. So, but we are here on the Girl Dad Discussions podcast to talk about uh, girl dads, right? And
Mm,
being girl dads. So, just starting off, my first question I want to ask you: what does it mean to you to be a girl dad?
mm. To me, it means to set the bar extremely high for the future men. That's basically what it means to me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And you know what? So, I always forget to ask this question first. What is your daughter's name, and how many daughters do you have?
I
I
have one
always
one
forget to ask.
daughter. That's all right. That's all right. I have one daughter. Her name's Harper, and she's 6 years old.
6 years old. Okay,
Yeah.
early, early. My daughter is 20 now, so she's all grown up. But I have two beautiful granddaughters now. So the journey continues.
Oh yeah.
So Micah, let's go back a little bit to even how did you even find out that you were going to be a dad?
Well, it took quite some time to really get on the same page about having a child because obviously it takes two. Um, so after we both decided it was okay and time to have a child, then we decided to, and we planned on it. And after about a month of trying, month and a half, we found out we were going to have one. We decided to make it a surprise, so we didn't want to find out the sex. So we waited until she fell out and I caught her.
That was going to be one of my next questions too. I always ask about, did you guys wait or was it surprise? So I think the surprises is probably a little better.
Yeah.
Some people want to know up front, but I think the surprise is definitely better. So I know you said your daughter's only 6,
Mm.
but that's not too far away from the experience of being a newborn. So how was your experience being a father of a newborn and just caring for your daughter at those early stages?
Oh man, it was magical, I would have to say. It's something that you really can't experience or see coming, at least in my opinion, as a man. Like, to describe it, you are one way, and then once you have a child, you are a totally different person. Um, I would have to say she softened me in a very positive way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question is, tell me something that your daughter has taught you because I know that
mm,
even at the young age that she is, you know when we are raising our daughters, they are usually something that we learn along the way from them, and not just our daughters, all of our children. But usually there's something along the way, and you can look back and be like, yeah, I didn't even think of that. So tell us something that your daughter has even taught you.
well, uh, man, she's taught me a lot, actually. I would say one of the first things that she taught me was a new level of patience and being just gentle and soft, I guess, for a child. It's like you don't realize that you have the capability of being uh, so soft-hearted until you're holding a brand new baby and it's yours, and you just melt.
Yeah, yeah. So one of my biggest achievements, um, that I say with my daughter was to be able to be with her like way before FaceTime and all those things started. After me and her mom divorced and they moved further away, you know, we had to find creative ways to stay in contact with each other and still meet to be active. And one of the things that I remember I used to have to do, I remember helping her with our homework and she would literally take a picture of the homework, assignment or the math problems and send it to me, and then we would call and I would talk her through it. This, like I said before, FaceTime and all this stuff. And so just to being able to go to whatever lengths that I felt necessary to be steadily active, in my daughter's life is one of my best achievements, should I say, as a father. So when you think about, you and your daughter at this time, again, she's still young, but what would you say is one of your biggest achievements as a father thus far?
Whew, that is a good question. Biggest achievement would have to be learning how to slow down and focus on how to teach, how to clearly explain something, and be patient enough with a small child in order for them to grasp what you're trying to teach them, especially if it's so important. And as well, just to keep myself disciplined enough to be a good example. Because there's a lot of ways that we as adults we start to fall behind and slack on, and they're always watching us and imitating us, and we can't slack. We have to be on on our game.
Yeah. So, on the opposite side of that, right? One of the things that I talk about is when my daughter was probably 7 or 8, around that time, she had a daddy daughter dance. And I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go. But then I ended up having to work. And I was like,
Mm.
man. And so I said, well, I'll miss this one and I'll catch the next one. And so, as I mentioned earlier, my daughter's 20 now, and there never was a next one, you know. So I missed that opportunity. And so, one of the things that I always talk about is my biggest regret as a father. And that's one of the biggest regrets that I have is that I missed that. It is not even so much that for her, but it was always something that I wanted to do with her. And we've had other dances and other things that have came up since then, and some things that I've been able to share with her. But it's not that, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't the daddy daughter dance,
Right.
and so that's one of my regrets. So even as a father now, and it's still early, but do you have anything that you look back on now and say, yeah, maybe I could have did that differently?
Mm. Yeah, I would say there's always those moments where you wish you could get them back and just do them again, just to
Mhm.
show up a little bit better. Um, One of the main reasons for separating was a lot of the moments that I was just not strong enough to set a good example, and allowing my emotions to take over, and just not being a good example as a male or a man. And there's a lot of moments like that when she was young, very young, like 2, 3 years old, and she's watching, and I could see it in her face or in her eyes, that sadness, that heartbreak. And those are the moments where I wish I could go back in those crucial years and just know what I know now.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to touch on that a little bit because I know we briefly talked about it a little before we started recording. And again, to my listeners, I want this podcast to definitely celebrate our daughters, but also add to our fathers. And being able to set a good example for our daughters as fathers and then as just as men. And I know you kind of mentioned about that the relationship that you had, I believe, with her mom, it just wasn't the best example in front of her. And I even mentioned with my relationship with my ex-wife, because I've divorced now, but we're really good friends. And when we do hang out, occasionally we do hang out together, and people see us in the same spaces. They always say, well, why don't you guys get married again? And it's like, well, because we figured out we're better as friends, and so even with that, even with my daughter, even though she's my daughter's stepmom, their relationship are so close that they're still in contact. And she still calls her mom, and they have their own relationship even outside of me that is still held strong even after our divorce. And we've been at this time divorced about 2 years, but their relationship is still strong. And so even with that, even one of the things that I wanted to do with my daughter and made sure that I did was to be a good example of what a man looks like, and what a husband looks like, and what it looks like to be in a healthy relationship, even if it is in divorce. Like I said, we divorced, but we made sure that we sat down and worked it out where it can be very smooth for everybody together, because we have 5 kids all together. And so we're like, okay, we wanted everything to be smooth. Like, just because the marriage didn't work, don't mean that our friendship has to end. And it still doesn't mean that our family ends. The dynamics change, but the relationship that she has with my daughter, the relationship that I have with her sons, all of that still plays a part, even though we're divorced. So we can't just think about us. Even in the midst of this transition, we still have to think about the rest of the family. And so I'm sure that some of those same considerations went into your decision, you guys' decision to even separate, like you said, because the things that you're seeing, the sadness in your daughter's eyes, and whatever some of the experiences that you guys may have shared. So if you're talking to another dad, a younger dad, who may not necessarily have went through that yet, but maybe this is something that they're considering because maybe things just not working out, what would be kind of some advice, or even just some of the things that came to your mind when it came to making that decision, and then being able to still be a good example for your daughter, even in that decision to separate?
Yeah, yeah, and that's probably the most important thing is being a good example, even in separation, because as adults, we have to be mindful of every action and every moment, because they're observing us, they're watching us as examples. They're going to mimic us and repeat what we do, and when they get to adulthood, they're going to do the exact same thing that we did in that moment because that's all they know. So if you are in that position, if I was talking to myself when I was back in that position, I would say try everything that you can try to make the relationship work by going out and getting help. If you can get help, then get it. If it's still not working and you're still falling in these bad cycles of, very chaotic environment or destructive behavior, separate and don't hesitate because the longer you put it off, the longer they are going to absorb all of that behavior patterns, and they're going to repeat those patterns when they get older. And they could be 2, 3 years old. They're still absorbing all of it. They're watching you. And you don't want to burden their future with your mistakes and your fear of not making a decision or hesitating to take action. Waiting is still making a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to switch it up just a little bit to go into our next segment of the podcast. And the next segment of the podcast is called Getting to the Core segment. And so, to all my listeners, make sure that you guys go and get your copy of the Core Four, which is the Core Four values that every daughter should get from her father, which is the ebook that I wrote. And you can find it at ebooksbyejames.com. Again, that's ebooksbyejames.com. And it's called The Core Four, which is the 4 core values that every daughter should get from her father. So, Micah, I know I sent you a copy of the Core Four, but I'll just go over them right quick, the 4 core values that I believe that every daughter should receive from her father. Number 1 is guidance. Number 2 is affirmation. Number 3 is love and affection. And number 4 is protection. So out of those 4 values, just in your parenting style and your own mind, if you had to choose one, which value would probably be most important to you to make sure that you install in your daughter?
It would have to be love and affection. I feel like that I feel like showing a daughter what love looks like and affection, that pretty much creates the entire foundation of their future relationships and what they find to be acceptable behavior.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and the last question is again, this is the core four, but if there could be a fifth value that you could add to the four core values, what would that fifth value be?
Mm, that is a good question because those four are pretty much locked right in there. I would say, I would say that guidance would it probably fall under guidance, but I would say strength. Strength because as a man, there's a lot of different forms of strength, and
Mhm.
from a young girl's perspective, it would be just being unbreakable, emotionally, you know, and not allowing life to tear you down in even a single moment. That inspires such tenacity in a child that they know that no matter what comes at them, he'll be all right.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Micah. I want to thank you, man, for being on the podcast and coming on. I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with how do you feel? You know, whether you want to leave a message for a father, maybe leave a message to your daughter, however you want to you feel to leave us for just something that's on your mind. And I'll give you a chance to think about that. To my listeners, thank you guys for tuning in again to the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Make sure that you guys are checking out our website. Check us out at our company website, which is the Deal Heal fulfill.org. That's deal heal fulfill.org. And also make sure you guys go to ebooks by ejames.com to check out not only the core four, but I have four other ebooks that is available there. So we got the core four, but we also have From Males to Men, which is a male mentoring book for young men that's coming into adulthood. So we got something for the daughters and something for the sons. So make sure you guys go to ebooks by ejames.com to check that out. Also, make sure that you guys subscribe to our text line. You want to text the word subscribe to the number 866-326-0730 to receive text messages about new episodes, ebook releases, and event information. Okay. Also, make sure you guys are checking out. I've been blessed to be a part of an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And one of the things that we do, we hold free virtual workshops every quarter of the year. And we talk about forgiveness, what it is, what it's not, who is it for, what does it mean? And we also talk about forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world. And we're always adding to it. But whenever you're listening to this, either a event just passed or one is coming up. Again, so it's a free virtual workshop. You can go to forgivenessmission.com to register for the next workshop, or go to Eventbrite and just look up Forgiveness Mission Workshop, and you can register that way. Again, it is a free virtual workshop on forgiveness that we have every quarter of the year. So 4 times a year we having this, we have it, and we just recently had our first in-person event, and which we are going to be doing very soon. Again, it was called Surviving Suicidal Ideation. It was a great event. We have 4 speakers, and we're going to be doing that event again soon. But in the meantime, make sure you go to forgivenessmission.com to register for the free virtual workshop. Last but not least, I know y'all guys are wondering how you can win $100 from the podcast. So you can win $100 from the podcast by entering our super subscriber contest. First, you must subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook page, and to our podcast on Spotify. After you've done those 3 things, then text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730 to qualify to win $100. The contest is random and it's ongoing, which means once you're in, you can always win. You don't have never have to re-up or anything like that. So once you do those three things, subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our Facebook page, and to our podcast on Spotify. And then text the word WIN, WIN, to the number 866-326-0730. And you will be entered to win the $100 from the podcast. So, Micah, once again, let me say thank you again for coming on and sharing your story and your expertise with us. And I would, again, like you to have the last word. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me, by the way. And the only thing I can really add is just echoing what you've already said, and find self-love. That's most important. Secondly, to the young men and young women out there, develop your relationship with your parent, the opposite sex. If you're a girl, develop your relationship with your father. It's the most important relationship you can have. Same with the young men, develop your relationship with your mother. If it's hard, keep working at it. It's the most important relationship you'll ever have.
Yeah, yeah. So once again, thank you, Michael, for being on. To the listeners, thank you guys once again for checking out the Girl Dad Discussions podcast. Until next time, you guys be blessed.